Hi everyone, I'm at the E3 Konami studio with Castlevania Lords of Shadow Mirror of Fate producer Dave Cox and also MercurySteam's studio head Enric Alvarez. Hello gentlemen.
Hi Christine.
Hello.
Hi. Well, we're very glad to have you. We have a couple questions for you. Starting off is, as this is MercurySteam's first handheld title, how is the team adjusting to working on a platform like Nintendo 3DS?
Well, I think it's fair to say it's been a challenge. The team have basically built the technology for the 3DS from scratch, from the ground upwards, using MercurySteam's Mercury engine. So recreating the kind of visual style of Lords of Shadow with the gritty, realistic look and the sort of 3D polygon worlds has been something that we wanted to do for the 3DS. And honestly, I think the team have kind of met the challenge, and they've recreated the kind of the thing that people loved about the original game onto 3DS. I kind of shrunk it down and given it that kind of really cool, you know, modern look for Castlevania game. So yeah, it's not been easy, but I think hopefully today when people play the game, they'll see, you know, what we've been able to achieve. So.
Do you agree with that, Enric?
Yes, it was a challenge because, as you said, it was our first game on a handheld, and we wanted to reproduce the look of Lords of Shadow, how it looked in PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, but on a handheld device. So it was quite a challenge, but I think that we managed to put in the console a product that is it's gonna be very, very clear that the people that has played the previous games are gonna recognize the ambience, the mood, the action, the characters, etc.
And will we expect any returning characters, either enemies or equipment from Castlevania Lords of Shadow, to appear in Mirror of Fate?
Yeah, there'll be a few. Obviously, you know, in the original game, Gabriel Belmont was established as the kind of villain of our world, if you like. So he's going to be the main bad guy that the protagonists have to fight against. He'll be returning. There'll obviously be returning enemies from previous Castlevania games, you know, reimagined in the style of Lords of Shadow. You might see one or two enemies that were in the original game again in this game. But what we've tried to do is introduce new characters, new members of the Belmont family who are going to go up against their ancestor. And I think that's quite exciting. It's a kind of family dynamic of the Belmonts versus Dracula, and that's what we really play on in this game.
Right. So according to the trailer, there were multiple protagonists, like you said earlier. Can you speak briefly how this changes the game when you use different characters?
Well, each character has their own abilities, so there's a kind of a core gameplay concept that the characters use a whip-style weapon, but each character has different abilities that they can bring. For example, Trevor has double jump, which is an ability which allows him to reach other areas that the other players won't be able to reach, and and other characters will have other abilities that will allow them to explore parts of the castle that the other characters can't. So although you play the game in different time periods, in different eras, you'll see things that happened along the way that other character, when you played with the other character that you did when you played through the first time. So that's quite an interesting concept. We've tried to make each character, the core gameplay the same, but give them little nuances and little features that's going to give them that individuality that's going to be, so make it interesting for people to play the game through.
What kind of new combat cross abilities and vampire slaying equipment can we expect to find in Mirror of Fate?
Well, I think one of the cool weapons is the secondary weapon that we show in the demo, which is Trevor, which is called the Boomerang. It's a traditional weapon from the Castlevania series, but we kind of made it a little bit more beefy, if you like, so it does more damage to enemies. In Castlevania Lords of Shadow, the secondary weapons are really important because they are very, very powerful. Although you have a limited number, so you have to manage that resource. It allows you to take down enemies a lot quicker, and the boomerang obviously comes back to you, but if you charge it up and throw it, then you lose it, but it does more damage to the enemy. So that's quite an interesting feature. And there'll be other secondary weapons, some of which we can't mention or talk about today, obviously. But each character has their own different secondary weapons that they can use in the game. So it's quite a cool feature.
What sorts of 3D effects will we see incorporated in this title?
Well, due to being the Nintendo 3DS a powerful device, I think that we have recreated quite accurately the flavor of the special effects we found in Lords of Shadow. After all, this is a sequel, so we need the players feeling the same world, feel the same, the same feelings. It smells the same. So the range of special effects we found in Lords of Shadow, you're going to find it here. You're going to have a whip with effects, very, very spectacular. We're going to have explosions, we're going to have electrical effects, we're going to have water, we're going to have lots of things that we have treated very, very carefully in order it matches the quality we found 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, I definitely noticed the intricate details. I just played it on night and I couldn't believe on such a handheld device I could see it. I mean, the 3D was impeccable.
Yeah, the fidelity of the graphics. I think one of my favourite things about it is it looks like a miniature diorama. When you look at it in 3D, the depth of the game, is incredible. And when the camera goes into the environment, it gives it that kind of really 3D look, and it just adds an extra dimensionality to the game that I've not seen before. And I think that's going to be the key, is that people try it with the 3D turned up and actually play it on a 3DS. Because until they try that, they're not really going to understand what the cool feature is.
Well, because then you completely forget that you're playing on a handheld device.
Absolutely,
it literally feels like you're playing on a giant screen.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that there will be any additional content or online components after this release?
There will be. Some additional features, but we're not really allowed to talk about them at the moment.
Okay, well then, that means
yes.
Stay tuned, because we got secrets coming up. And so if fans are new to the story, do you think they can jump right into this title?
I think so. What we've tried to do is we're trying to create a saga. Lords of Shadow 1 was really about the origin of Dracula and the rift within the Belmont family. Lords of Shadow 2 will finish the saga, and Mirror Fate kind of sits in between the middle. But we've tried to make each game self-contained, so players can pick up and play and enjoy the game without having to have played the other games. But I think if you really want to get the full kind of richness of the universe, then you've got to play all 3 games really. But we don't want to sort of put people off by them thinking, oh, I've got to play Lords of Shadow 1. You don't need to play Lords of Shadow 1 to enjoy this game.
Right, to understand the storyline.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's kind of explained and you can jump right in.
How does the combo and magic systems relate to that of Lords of Shadow?
Do you want to answer this?
Well, it pretty much works like in the original game, because we found that was a depth system that was, we think, it was universally praised. And it gives a tactical flavor to combat. It's not just about mashing the button, but you have to think about when you have to recover life, when you have to deal with more damage, when you have to dodge, to defend, to block, etc. So I think that we're giving players a lot of things to think about when fighting. It's not just mashing your button until the enemies fall down. No. It's about, okay, let me think about what I'm doing here. So we thought that was something that needed to be respected, needed to be translated. Of course, we've done some adjustments in order to adapt it to the control system. But basically, the system is the same, and I think that it's a good system that is going to be well understood and very, very well accepted by handheld users.
I think it was also something that people liked in the previous game. People, game critics and reviews, and that said the combat system. Once you got to grips with it, the depth of it was really something people really liked, and we wanted to replicate that on the handheld system. So we've, as Enric said, we slightly simplified it, but it's very much the same system. So this is an action combat game. That's first and foremost what it is—an action combat game with a very deep adventure element to it. So yeah, and enemies will present different challenges to players in the way that they utilise their combos or the way that they manage their resources, their secondary weapons, as I spoke to about before. That's really important, because secondary weapons are a way to really get even with enemies very quickly, so you can take them down quickly. So yeah, it gives people something else to think about, as well as the exploration side, and the story side. They've got to think about the combat and think about how that's going to work. How can I take down this guy? So they've got lots of options, which is really cool.
Does this game feature Metroidvania aspects?
Well, one of the criticisms that we got of the previous game was the lack of exploration. We kind of focused on more of the action combat side of it, and we got a lot of praise for that, but also we got a lot of criticism for the exploration aspect. So we have looked at improving the exploration aspects of the game. So I would say this game is more like the kind of classic games like Dracula's Curse or Rondo of Blood, in that it has branching pathways. You do explore a big castle, and yes, you can go back, and you've got this huge map to explore. So in that respect, it does have similarities with the Metroidvania style of Castlevania games, but it's first and foremost an action game.
Right.
And not an RPG game where you have to collect lots of things. So it's kind of an amalgamation between the two, a meeting point of the two
Perfect
styles.
Yeah. And how does this title build up the Belmont legacy?
Well, for me, this is one of the most exciting aspects of it, because obviously what we've done is we've set up, Gabriel Belmont is Dracula, and that he has a son, and Trevor, the player the character that you play in the game, he has a really interesting story, it's a very tragic tale, the Belmont tale. We want to treat it with respect, and we really want players to kind of get a depth that they've perhaps not had in Castlevania games before, in terms of why it is that the Belmonts have to go up against Dracula. And also Dracula himself is not a black and white evil guy anymore. We understand him, he's a tragic figure, there's something about him, you can understand how he's got to this point, even if we can't completely sympathise with him. And I think what players are going to really enjoy about Castlevania Lords of Shadow Mirror Fate on 3DS is this kind of opening up of the story and a real deep understanding about the Belmont curse, which I think is really cool and interesting.
All right, well, there you have it. I guess for more information, you're just going to have to stay tuned on the Castlevania Facebook, which is www.facebook/Lords of Shadow. And the Konami team really thanks you, Dave Cox and Enric Alvarez, for joining us today. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Konami.